what you guys saw was our Sikh kebab.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
These are nice.
This is our palak paneer with cheese.
It's my favorite dish.
Mine too.
This is what CEOs have in common. This beautiful spinach creamy sauce on top of the paneer.
And this is our eggplant. Stuffed eggplants.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
There.
All right.
Beautiful spread.
Yeah. It's
Look at
good.
these colors. Gorgeous. So you were saying you only eat Indian food every couple of weeks?
A couple of weeks. Yeah, I usually like to eat only my mom's food. That's the good stuff. So.
All right.
Rajma is what it's called. So my mom makes that. It's really, really good. And then yogurt, like Indian style yogurt, is always good. So, yeah, those are most of them. And then I love lamb. So
Right.
lamb, kind of cooked Indian style, is really good. I like lamb chops as well, but with the Indian spices. Yeah, I'll try that.
All right, break it out Indian style.
Indian style, yeah.
What you remember from your childhood days about eating Indian food?
I eat Indian food almost every day.
Every
I
day.
remember, at least for dinner, every day. And I remember as a kid, like, I'd always want to go to like McDonald's or something like that once in a while, and we'd go maybe like once a week.
Right.
But
To McDonald's?
to McDonald's, some like fast food spot or someplace
That
that
often?
wasn't
Once a
Indian
week?
food. Yeah, because
Wow.
my brother and I would always want to go.
Right.
We'd always want to have something else.
Right.
And now in retrospect, I look back at it and I was like, I had such amazing Indian food every day, and lots of other stuff. My mom cooks all kinds of good stuff, so it was good. But yeah.
Now you grew up in Southern California, right? Mm-hmm. And was it predominantly an Indian community?
No, not at all. Actually, it was quite the opposite. I mean, there were Indian folks, Asian folks, a little bit of kind of a Latino influence, but not really. We grew up in the town was Irvine in California. It was right near UCI, so it's got some
Right.
university influence, which is really cool. A lot of really smart people, a lot of people doing interesting things. Actually, a lot of entrepreneurship in Southern California, which I didn't appreciate till later, actually, but we realized a lot of folks, like a lot of my family friends were all entrepreneurs, that as well, so it was cool. Yeah.
Did you have anything? Any kind of snacks waiting for you at home? Or was it until dinner time?
We actually used to eat dinner pretty early. It was kind of odd. We were, I remember talking to a lot of my friends, and we'd actually eat dinner really, really early. So I'd get home from school maybe 3 or 4 or something like that. And then we'd actually have dinner sometimes at like 5:30 or 6. And then, so it was different. So I was never really had a snack because I was always dinner was around the corner.
What do you think are the best dishes that your mother makes for Indian food?
So saag paneer, rajma.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get her recipe for
Yeah,
something.
for sure.
Did your mother get recipes from her mother?
Absolutely.
Passed down?
Yeah, definitely. And my mom got recipes from her mother and also from my dad's mother.
Okay.
My dad's mom makes, she unfortunately has passed, but she makes a killer achar, which we still have some.
What about on your mother's side? Do you still have your grandmother? So she's still there to cook for you. Where does she live? In India?
She's in Punjab now.
Oh, fantastic. So is your family from that area?
We are. So our family's actually from, on both sides of my family is actually from what is now Pakistan. So kind of post-partition, both sides of my family moved into India. But where my family's originally from is now in the Punjab province in what is now Pakistan. It's called the Northwest. One of the dishes that my grandmother makes, it's really cool. It's kind of off the beaten path. It's called mani, and it's actually like it's made from mango. It's almost like it's like a very light curry, and it's really, really good. And I've never found it at a restaurant. I only find it in India when I go to see my grandmother, and it's from kind of like the hill region where my grandmother and grandfather lived for a long time. Yeah, this is really good.
Makes you miss India?
Yeah, it makes me miss good Indian food.
Right.
Yeah. Let me give it a shot.
Let me get a close-up shot of that.
Yeah. I have is more. It's kind of like this, which is just the saag and just the paneer, and nothing really else. So. Although now I'm curious to try it.
It's just more tangy. I think saag paneer is very classic creamy.
Yeah, exactly.
And adding the tomato makes it a little bit more tangy, which I'm not crazy about.
Right.
Indian cuisine is something that I'm learning more in depth now, thanks to a lot of Indian chef friends.
Nice. I'm a big fan of the butter chicken, so I'll have to, because it's all about the sauce. For me, the sauce is just so good everywhere else. So we all eat together all the time, and we work like different catering services, and they bring the food in. So it's fun. We get to taste all kinds of different stuff. And San Francisco's great for that. So everything from literally African food to Indian food to sandwiches and pizzas and everything in between. So it's a lot of fun. Afghani food. We've tried it all in the office, which is cool. Yeah.
So you feed your team well.
Absolutely. That's the most important thing.
That's a great thing for a CEO, to be a great foodie and make sure his people are well fed.
We eat well. There's a great ecosystem for bringing quality food to the office, which is great. It's also great for the restaurants. They get a chance to introduce people to new food. And I know I've gone to places that have delivered into our office, and some of those have become some of my favorite restaurants. It's kind of cool. Yeah.
Well, I think especially for tech companies where a lot of the team is constantly sitting down all day, it's already an unhealthy lifestyle. Yeah, exactly. So the least we can do is eat as well as possible.
So there's a place called Kabob Factory, which
is in Delhi.
This is in Delhi. It is amazing. The name, sounds a little weird, but it is phenomenal food, and it's the way they cook the lamb, the chicken, it's just slow, done with patience, and it's really soft. It's amazing. I think Bill Clinton has eaten there a couple of times as well. That's where he goes when he goes to India, so it's a good spot.
So that's like the roadside pho stall in Vietnam. Anything that has Bill Clinton's stamp on it, as long as he's been there, suddenly gets super popular.
Yeah, it's just non-stop eating. It's pretty much all we do out there.
I think you need a little bit more of everything.
I might do a little round two here. Thank you.
We love people who eat. You can't do business unless you eat well.
That's true.
This is a very smooth sauce. You can see the whole Indian eggplant here, which they cut slices into, but it's still intact.
Oh, cool.
Really great texture. Beautiful.
I studied electrical engineering and computer science.
Cool. And you got your bachelor's in that? And what did you do right after you graduated?
Right after that, actually, I ended up graduating a semester early, and I ended up traveling.
Why am I not surprised by that?
Yeah, and then ended up going to just travel a lot in that 6-month period. So I was starting a job in investment banking. Investment banking is notorious for working, 90-plus hour work weeks, and I knew that I was going to be kind of in lockdown for a couple years. So
well, wait a minute. So you majored in EECS, but you went into investment banking.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Actually, it's a function of a lot of my friends were going into that space. So I think it was more, back at that time, it was the hot thing to do. A lot of people were going into it. It was really exciting. A couple of my friends were, really close friends were going into it. It's like, I'll check this out. Seems interesting. And then got to go into investment banking, but with technology. So it was technology investment banking, which was exciting. So the deals I was working on were all technology related. So kind of got to maintain my passion around technology and engineering, but do it in a business context, which is for me. After I graduated Berkeley, I never left. So I've been here ever since.
Why is that?
It's amazing. This place is great. I think the culture, the people, the food, the events. I mean, so many fabulous musicians and artists are always coming by. But really, for me, more than anything else, it is a function of the culture of creation that exists in San Francisco. I think people are excited to build things, build companies, build movements, and just be involved in the creation process, which is so exciting.
So we're here with the owner of Amber Restaurant, Vijay. Very happy to have him here with us today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the history of Amber?
So, Amber has been 18 years. Our original one was in Mountain View, and this was our fifth one, and we just started sixth one in Mission in Valencia. So all the people from Silicon Valley, they all come, all the entrepreneurs from India and all over.
So there's close ties between the food of India and
as a matter of fact, I just met, Silicon Valley is the right place. It has been very encouraging, and people have been, mostly the people have encouraged me to where we are today. Everyone has been very supportive, helpful, and this is all about a community that we...
Well, Arjun and I are both regulars here, and your sag paneer and the chicken makhani are both best in San Francisco.
Thank you. Good to have you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, do you remember any specific moments that you spent alone with your father or your mother?
With my father, we all spent a lot of time talking about philosophy and kind of spirituality and
started
history.
Young?
That started very young. Yeah,
Interesting.
very young. And with my mother, it was always mostly about family, kind of what's going on with different folks in India and elsewhere, and just kind of keeping up to date on
the catching up part of it.
Yeah, the catching up part of it.
So what did your father talk to you about regarding philosophy and spirituality? What did he teach you?
A lot of things, kind of having spent time in Germany, so he read, Hermann Hesse and some of the kind of German, philosophers, Nietzsche and others. And then also, given his Indian heritage, a lot from the Vedic tradition and from Buddhist tradition and things like that. So it was kind of this amalgamation of all of those things, which was really fascinating. So everything from Aldous Huxley and his perspectives to, the essence of the Gita and, things like that. So it was really, really fascinating and had a lot of different perspectives that I got a chance to experience early.
Do you believe in God or a higher power?
I do.
And tell me about the faith that your parents and grandparents instilled. Are they of faith?
They are, yes. My grandmother on my father's side was Sikh, and my grandparents on my mom's side are Hindu. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does this faith play out in your daily life? How does it guide you in your behavior and your thoughts and your actions?
I think it's incredibly important. I think faith, not necessarily in kind of the traditional senses as in faith in God, but just the ideal of faith is so important. Just to have faith in one's community, oneself, one's family, one's own ability to know that everything will be okay is really powerful. And I think, that's the essence of the word. And I think that concept is so important to me. Personally, professionally, spiritually, in relationships, and in everything. This is really important.
Do you pray?
I don't pray in the traditional sense of prayer. I think, I'd say it's more of kind of an act of meditation, or, I think when I swim, to me, is an act of praying, which is interesting. I don't think I've had a lot of those moments where it's complete despair. I think this goes back to our conversation when we started, was around the concept of faith. And I think having a very strong sense of faith in some way protects you from that deep, deep despair. Because if you always know that it'll be okay, things will be all right, then the depth of your despair is never too deep. And so I think faith is that, that nice cushiony kind of, net at the bottom of despair that'll bounce you right back up.
I had asked you earlier the faith that your parents instilled in you. So what about your grandparents on both sides? Do you remember having conversations with them growing up? Anything that was more on the philosophical, spiritual side?
Yeah, my grandmother on my dad's side was just incredibly wise. I think she was known just in the community as a very, very wise woman. And she always had just, you know, kind of sayings and thoughts, and unfortunately I can't remember a lot of them, you know, now. And I remember one which I'll share, but she was just known for always imparting wisdom. People would come to her with kind of their problems and their questions, and she was just came from a place of groundedness and wisdom, which was just phenomenal to be a part of. And she was just very centered, which was cool.
Do you miss her?
I do. Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, it's funny. I haven't really thought about it in a while, but I do. Yeah, and I haven't to think about having those conversations with her now. Kind of having gone through what I've gone through would be really, really interesting. Go to India probably every 2 years.
Since you were born?
Since I was born, yeah. So I'd go 2 or 3 years, and my grandparents would come and visit. Especially when I was growing up, they were around. Like either my grandmother on my dad's side or my grandparents on my mom's side would come to the U.S. and typically in the summer. I'd be off of school, so we'd spend a lot of time together.
They would stay the whole summer?
Yeah, they'd stay the whole summer, yeah.
So did they all dress traditionally in some ways?
Both my grandmothers did, yeah. In college at the time.
Okay,
yeah.
so an adult.
Yeah, an adult, yeah.
Do you remember those moments?
I do, and I think it was very sad, but I was so far removed physically that it was tough to almost acknowledge it, right? Because it was weird, because I would see her every couple of years, and so it didn't even really register until much later. I think when I went back to India the next time, I realized it when I went to her home, where my dad's brother, my uncle, lives now, and his family, and that's when it really hit me. And then within 15 minutes, you know, or what seemed like a very short time, we were off to the next place.
So you didn't even get a chance to absorb.
Yeah, I don't think I really did in that.
Do you think about her often?
I do, and it comes when it's more around kind of the when thinking about kind of deep philosophical issues or wisdom or that sort of thing, and then it kind of, you know, comes up, and it's just like I know that she's kind of there.
How do you think you handle stress?
I think over the years, I've just gotten a lot of practice with it, and I think, you know, ever since high school, just, you know, dealing with 10 different activities, and through college, you know, doing a double major and a certificate in something else, and just and being involved in, you know, professional fraternity and others, just a lot of different things, just kind of get very comfortable with it, and it's not stress; it's just kind of how I, you know, do things, so to speak.
How do you think human life came to be?
It's a great question, and I don't claim to know the answer. And I don't think it's a deep question, and I don't really know. I think, you know, there's everything from, you know, God put us here to, you know, there's evolution to whatever. And I don't claim to know. And I just know that, you know, what we know from observation from science that's happened in the last few years, but why are we here? And that's a deeper question that I don't. I'm still trying to figure out. I'll let you know when I figure it out.
If there were one global issue that you could be given the power to solve, what would it be?
I think it'd have to be something around the perspectives we hold and the philosophies, and some the kind of issues around mental health more than anything, and kind of helping people appreciate the power that they have within themselves. And to really, really understand that, to deeply understand that, I think would be one thing. And I think a lot of other problems can be solved with that understanding in place. Yeah.
Tell me about some of the toughest times in your life and how you got through them.
Some of them that come to mind, I think one of them was moving, like just going to college. So I think, you know, in high school, you know, a lot of my kind of self-worth came from this idea of, you know, how I did in school, how well I did, and, you know, just in typical, it was a very kind of competitive atmosphere, you know, and so it was a lot of, okay, I'm getting, you know, my GPA is above a 4.0,
and it was
awesome.
pinned to that.
Yeah, and it was pinned to that, and I think a lot of it was that, and then Then when I went to college, I studied electrical engineering and computer science at UC Berkeley, which is a pretty challenging program. Right. And I remember going in, you know, the first couple of computer science classes, and, you know, back in high school, okay, you know, Arjun's a smart guy, like, you know, he's not the smartest, but a, you know, pretty smart guy. So, oh, cool, that's what, you know, that's how I kind of found my self-worth, so to speak. Went to UC Berkeley, and within the first semester was just like, holy shit, this is crazy. This is insane. This is, this is the most challenging stuff I've been faced with ever. And it was, difficult problems and, how just writing and reading and saying, okay, here's a book, finish it by next week. And then on top of that, here's a computer science project. On top of that, just make new friends and do all that other stuff. So that first experience was really challenging. One, it kind of, it brought me back to reality, so to speak, and helped me appreciate actually my other, kind of fellow classmates as well. Like, wow, I am surrounded by some brilliant people. And then after that, for the longest time in college, I had wanted to be a consultant. I had wanted to work for, one of the big three, Bain, BCG, McKinsey, one of those, and, was part of something called Berkeley Consulting, and, really wanted to be involved in the consulting world. I always thought it was a lot of fun. You fly around, you travel, you talk to jet setter life. You meet CEOs, you do just high level cool stuff. And so I had really done a lot of work to prep for that, or so I thought. And I still remember it was like when kind of senior year of college, was applying to all these jobs, and realized that I hadn't gotten into any of those top 3 consulting firms. And that's what everybody was gunning for, and that was the thing. And I think it was another harsh realization of this fact that your self-worth is not tied to, before it was a GPA, now it's what job you have after school, right? And so just getting these checks again and again. And I remember being just devastated, like sitting in my apartment, just like, oh my God, what do I do now? I don't like,
Did
this
you
is
cry?
what I was playing. I don't think I did, but yeah, probably not, but I might have, I don't know.
What were you thinking during those moments when you realized you didn't get to what you hoped you were going to do?
Yeah, I mean, it was a sense of failure. It was like, I worked so hard for, 3.5 years, 4 years, I didn't get this, like, what's going on? So there was a lot of that, self-doubt and what am I going to do now, right? It's like, because that transitionary period from college to your first job is like, this is such an important first step, and everything hinges on this, and that defines the rest of your career and that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of that noise going on in your head. But eventually you just pick yourself up and go after the next thing. You've got to do the best you can do and leave the rest alone.
So did you ever come across situations where you looked at someone that you thought, this person definitely didn't deserve that?
Right.
And not necessarily that you were envious, but you just wondered, how the hell did they get there? And why am I not there?
Sure. And I think that realization, or that conversation in my head, led me to start studying more things around leadership, around philosophy, around how to make an impact, around influence, around how to win friends and influence people. I mean, things like these. We started reading those things again, reading books on leadership, reading books on how to have kind of a stable, centered presence in mind, and those sorts of things, because that is so important in being successful, however you define it, right? And so a lot of those thoughts precipitated deep study for me, which was interesting. Yeah.
So you mentioned success. What is your definition of success?
It's changed so much over the last.
Tell me what you thought it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I, when I was in high school, it was all about going to Harvard and going
We've
into
all
like
been there.
going to like, I don't know, becoming a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, right? And then so that was kind of that path to success. In college, it was more about, okay, what job am I going to get out of college, and how's that going to get me into an MBA program, right? So it was more about this kind of, it's still very focused on what's next, and how can I get a stepping stone and prestige and these sorts of things, and even that was very present. I think that lasted a little bit through my first couple of jobs, and then as I began kind of after that time period to just study a lot more, begin to realize that success is more, for me now, is more about the impact that I can make. And that to me is most important. And so whether I do that internally with the team or externally with the advertising community in our case, or just externally with the business community, or however it's possible, I think that's more and more becoming my definition of success.
So you're not measuring success by finances in the bank?
That will happen. And my perspective is, as long as I'm committed to what I'm passionate about and committed to continuing to build, have an impact, provide real value, and just care about other people, the money will come.
So do you have friends or acquaintances that you consider successful who are not making six-figure salaries
Yeah,
or anywhere near that.
I think my brother, very close to me, is a perfect example of that. I mean, I think there's, they've been starting their company for 3 years. They've been still getting up off the ground. They're doing well, but by no means are they, paying themselves anywhere close to six-figure salary. But he's done so much to inspire so many people, and to just bring forth his energy and just really, really get people excited that they can do anything, that, eating healthy and being sustainable and that sort of stuff is important.
Do you think that the doors that were closed for a purpose to open?
I'm sitting here now with you today, and I know that was the right thing to happen.
Right.
So I think that's really important.
And that's a really important message, right, to a lot of people who are watching you around the world and feeling a lot of despair over things that are going on in their own lives.
Absolutely.
Doors that close, sometimes it's meant to happen no matter how hurtful it is in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bigger, better things that we can't imagine
are around the corner. Exactly. Yes. Right. And I think that that concept of deep-seated faith, and just knowing that if you keep doing what you need to do, if you keep living your passion, if you keep being a good, solid human being, good things will happen. Right. And to celebrate those good things as well.
Were there moments when you panicked and you weren't sure if this was going to succeed? And how did you get through those moments?
Yeah, I think there's definitely moments of panic, and I think some of those are around. Well, the first one, the one that was probably most impactful and most scary was, one of our first salespeople was a phenomenal salesperson. The guy would just crush it all the time, really, really good. But he was just not aligned with our values, and just not aligned. And that's not. He's a great guy, he's an awesome person, but just not aligned with how we do things. Sure. And so that was just a cause of so much stress, right? And it was always just so challenging because we just butt heads because the values alignment wasn't there. A lot of it was there, but some of the key pieces were missing. Right. And that was so challenging to deal with because I'm in a place where I was like, I potentially have to let him go. I've never let anyone go before. Kind of going through all of those challenges was really, really tough.
And you did have to let him go then?
I did.
How
eventually.
Did you do that?
Quickly and carefully and just short, and it had to be done. But in that moment when just kind of that consistent strife and conflict and like
it's tiring, right?
Deep-seated. And that's not just like, I want a raise, no, you shouldn't get a raise. And nothing like that. It's not that sort of conflict, or I think we should go in this direction or that direction. But it's really fundamental values.
What do you think have been some of your biggest mistakes in life, either on a personal level and a business level?
Sure. I think a lot of it comes from kind of just ignorance. Whenever there have been mistakes, is around like I could have learned some more, could have done a little bit more research, done a little bit more analysis about how our company is structured, how our organization is structured, just a lot of these sorts of things where sometimes I'll just jump right into something, right, and then think about it a little later. Sometimes that serves me really well, all starting the company and not really thinking about it, just like, I'm just going to go ahead and do this.
That as an entrepreneur.
But it's also for me, the mistakes have been not necessarily checking out, not doing the full diligence, not spending the time to either do it myself or have someone on my team do it or something like that. And I think that's really important. So flying by the seat of your pants helps a lot, but if it can be done in a balanced way, that's
right. So that's more on a business level. What about on a personal level? Do you feel that you've made any grotesque mistakes that you regret?
Not really. I think I don't view them necessarily as mistakes, what others may consider mistakes. I think for me it's really about like learning, and it's a constant state of learning in the journey and the experiences that are around that. So it's very much around just what can I learn in every moment about myself, about others, about the world, about just everything. So I guess I have a very strong thirst for knowledge.
Sure. How do you think your character has changed from when you were 20 compared to now you're almost reaching 30? What do you see as the differences in yourself?
Yeah, I think just more just a bit more centered, a bit more appreciative of my own abilities. I think for a long time, I've been in a place where I didn't give myself enough credit, and to just be like, oh, you're okay, you're cool, whatever, you got a lot of stuff to learn, look at all these other smart people. But to take a moment to just express gratitude for myself, the work I've done, kind of just who I am, and just to be aware and present and thankful for that. So that's definitely changed over time, and just continue to kind of build relationships and meet really interesting, fascinating people, and that's important.
So have you ever felt the struggle to stand your ground versus doing what's popular? Were you ever afraid of not winning people over, or making enemies, making people not like you?
Absolutely. I think that's something that you deal with often. I mean, at conferences, at events, at places where
even now.
Yeah, I mean, even now. Yeah, I think. I mean, and every day is personal and professional philosophy is up and to the right. So just how can I get better, at that every day? But I remember, even like the first summit series I went to, you're just surrounded by all these incredible people, just artists and influencers and journalists and entrepreneurs of every variety, and so many fascinating folks from the nonprofit world. And I'm sitting there and just like, wow, like, I've got to be impressive. I've got to, show that I'm building something cool. Like, I got to help these people. I got to do something to, win everyone's favor. And then, that's tough. It's a really tough place to be in. And I think over time, you just kind of let that go and kind of just be yourself. And as hard and as, cliche as that phrase is, everyone's like, oh, be authentic, be authentic, be authentic. And it's hard work. It's not easy. You gotta, do the work to get that. And but once, and it's a never-ending journey. It never really stops. But once you start down that path, then it becomes easier.
So what's in store for you for the next few years?
Yeah, I think for the next few years is really committed to to building Retargeter. I think that's just laser focused on that. And I think that means, we're going to get new office space. We're going to, continue to grow the team. We're going to hire more senior folks in a leadership capacity. We're going to, do more to build our brand name out there in the space. And just continue to maintain and build on our culture. I think is so important. So,
on a personal level, do you imagine what life is going to be like a few years down the road? Do you plan it out, or
not really?
No?
I kind of just, my philosophy is really to just do what I can with 100% of my energy now, and just good things will happen. It's that faith thing again.
So you don't worry too much about what's going to happen a few years from now?
Not really, no. Yeah.
Do you find that to be any kind of balance, though? Because to a certain degree, as a CEO, you have to plan out where your company is going.
Oh, absolutely.
So in that sense, you are planning.
Absolutely.
Expecting that you will hopefully be here 5 years from now.
Yeah, definitely.
But at the same time, the element of uncertainty
is, I'm comfortable with that.
What are your ultimate dreams in life?
I think ultimately, let's say, 20, 30 years from now, would want to, have a fund or a series of investments, or do kind of angel investing or more serious investing in kind of in companies and organizations that have a strong impact on the world in some way. So in kind of a social capacity, in a even in just changing people's mindsets around things, using technology differently, making people's lives easier, those sorts of things are all really important. So I think there's something around having, a large fund and lots of resources to be able to impact the world in a positive way, and to have fun doing it. I think is the most important thing. Yeah.
So are there any particular investors that you admire?
There's a few. There's a guy named Chimoth, who was an early employee at Facebook, who started a fund called Social Plus Capital. Kind of really excited by what they're doing. I think Andreessen Horowitz here in the Valley, big fan of kind of what they're doing and how they do it. And then I think in the nonprofit space, what Kiva has been doing, and kind of their commitment to helping people grow and create self-sustaining economies, and an impact and impacting their communities in a meaningful way with just small loans. I think that stuff like that is.
So did you have the same dreams when you were growing up as what you're doing now? Did you know when you were in your teenage years what you wanted to do?
No, I think in my teenage years I was just trying very hard to understand life. I was just trying to understand.
Right.
I thought ask myself a lot of deep philosophical questions like why are we here? What is the point of all this? Blah blah blah. And kind of. So I wasn't really thinking about the future. I was more trying to understand the now. But over time, I'd say even in the last 5 years, the last maybe even 10 years, I began to have more clarity around kind of my life's purpose and mission and what I want to do longer term.
Do you think that there's still a lot of growth left in you in regards to who you are as a human being?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you don't think you've discovered all of who you are yet?
No, not even close. I think I've discovered a lot more of who I am than maybe 8 years ago, but so much more, and so many different nuances and elements of myself and my personality that I've yet to probably fully understand.
But you feel stable, right?
I feel stable, yeah.
There's a lot of people through their 20s, even through their early 30s, that claim they haven't found themselves. And as cliche as it sounds. And they go well until their 30s, sometimes even their 40s, never discovering who they really are.
Right.
You seem like you've got a pretty good handle so far.
I'd say I have a pretty good handle,
Right. Just a continuing journey.
Exactly.
For the young professionals and the families with children who are watching this around the world, and especially in India, where your family hails from, they look at you as the American dream.
Right.
Someone who comes from where they are, at least by bloodline, and they see the success that you've made of yourself. What would you say to them, especially to little kids and aspiring professionals who are maybe in their late teens or early 20s, going through college and trying to decide what they want to do in life?
Right.
How would you encourage them to be able to achieve their own unique dreams?
Right, and I think one of it is really having a sense of knowing who you are and what's important to you. So, know thyself is such a powerful and important statement. And then once you know yourself and what you're passionate about, what you truly care about, then to actually follow that dream. And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be what your parents want, what your community wants, what your society wants, what anybody else wants. It has to be what you really want. And if you bring that level of passion and depth behind it, everyone will understand, right? People will get it. They'll
You
just
say that very confidently.
I do, yeah.
I'm sure you've seen, if you haven't experienced yourself, you've seen the horrendous difficulty there is, especially with particular Asian cultures, in trying to be who you really are. And a lot of times the society expectations, family expectations, pressures, to be someone that you're not, to take a path that you're not happy with. What would you say to those people who are going through such difficulties, trying to be quote unquote authentic, as cliche as that sounds?
Yeah, and I think some of it is, to be pragmatic about it sometimes is maybe you go down the path that your family wanted you to go down, or your thing, your society asks of you, but eventually know that you always have a choice. And I think that's really important. I mean, I studied engineering and computer science because both my parents are computer scientists. That's what they do, and that was kind of just like, okay, I'm going to go do that. And I'm sure either consciously or subconsciously, my parents kind of said, no, go down this path, right? But I think what was helpful down the road was just having the realization that this doesn't have to be the end all be all, and to look and be aware of other opportunities, to have conversations with people, to learn about what else is possible in the world, and then to take that and do something about it, right? So I think starting down that path is totally fine. Sometimes it's really helpful to have a direction,
Very true.
right?
Very true.
And sometimes, there's too many possibilities. I don't know what I'm going to do. All right, I'm going to do what my parents want me to do. But then during that process, be open and aware and cognizant of what else is possible.
But as entrepreneurs, we know that there's a lot of naysayers along the way. How would you suggest people find the strength and courage to kind of wade through that often huge ocean of naysayers, especially when you're early on in your entrepreneurship path?
Sure.
How would you tell people to get through that?
I think it's around the people you surround yourself with. And I think that's so important. And there's as many naysayers as there are, there's a 100x, 1,000x more people who will be there and be supportive, even in the most subtle of ways. And I think it's to find those folks, spend time with those people, right? And sometimes, will that require you to not spend time with some people that, maybe you're close to? Yes, sometimes that will happen, and that's okay. But spend time with those people that make you feel better about yourself, that make you feel more inspired about yourself. And in doing so, the naysayers will fade away. Yeah.
So one of the greatest lessons would be never make fun of other people's dreams, right?
Absolutely not. No. And always just say yes. It's like, hey, do you want to do that? Yeah, go for it. Here's some things you should think about, but you can do it. And if you don't think about these things, or if you don't do these things, yeah, it may not go as smoothly as possible, but can you do it? Absolutely.
Are you happy?
I am. Yeah.
With everything in life right now?
Pretty much, yeah. I think, there's I always think about the word happiness and joy, and I'd say happiness is fleeting, and I think joy is a state that you're in, and you're kind of more just enjoy. You're just present and joyful and excited to be here and to be doing what you're doing, and I think that's the state I'm in. Am I sad sometimes? Absolutely. Am I more happy sometimes? For sure. But I think for me, it's more, life kind of goes like this. Sure. Right? So it's more kind of doing this, but getting more and more higher in terms of joy. And that's what's really important. So at least your steady state is still in a good place.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Really
Wonderful.
appreciate it.